It would seem to me that the proposition before the House, if I put it that way, is the American dream at the expense of the American Negro, or the American dream is at the expense of the American Negro, is a question hideously loaded, and that one's response to that question, or one's reaction to that question, has to depend on the effect on where you find yourself in the world.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Lovecraft Country podcast by The Verdict's In. I'm your host, Nicole.
I'm Gary.
And today we're talking about the very first episode of Lovecraft Country on HBO entitled Sundown. So we start off and we get this dream. I didn't know if it was a fantasy, but it turns out it was a dream of Tick fighting aliens and monsters. And we see Jackie Robinson come and save the day. What were your thoughts when we get that initial scene?
I love the initial scene. I love that it still showed who he was. He was in the army. He was fighting a battle. When it started off, I thought he was fighting against, well, I thought it was a real war he was fighting.
Right.
When it started off. He was fighting against a group of people. And then you see him span out. And now you see alien. You see 3 spaceships flying in the air. You see the little alien from like World of War. Isn't that the name of the movie?
I think so.
With the big aliens that's walking.
Right.
And shooting down at people. And then the octopus come out. So it was a lot of things there. I love the scene. And, you know, I'm a big fan of sci-fi and science fiction and everything. So, I mean, and then when I seen Jackie Robinson, you know, at that age, at this time, Jackie Robinson was just a hero.
Yeah.
He was a hero to all young black boys, black men, just black people, period.
Right.
So it was just amazing to see Jackie Robinson come and save the day.
And I feel like the Jackie Robinson movie with Chadwick Boseman didn't get enough, like, at least, not to me, it doesn't seem like a lot of people know about that movie, number 42. It came out years ago before Black Panther, but he did such a good job, and that movie was so good, and it showed you how important Jackie Robinson was to not only present day, but to the history and what he meant at that time. I definitely encourage people to go see that movie or go watch it somewhere.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, check it out. If you have seen it, check it out again.
Right.
Put some friends on it.
So he's on a bus. He wakes up. Their bus breaks down. A little van, not a van, but like a little type car pickup truck comes and picks him up. And it's not clear to us if him and the only other black person there, a lady, were either left behind or they chose not to go.
It's very clear, but I want to step back a little bit.
Uh-huh.
When he woke up, you see him leaving Kentucky. He's leaving one of the Army bases, which could be Fort Knox, Fort Campbell, any of that.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was born in Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
Yeah.
On that base. And he stuck his middle finger up. Like,
oh, yeah.
No, I'm out of here. This is not my fight.
Yep.
I have better things to do. Well, we know what he's going to do, but we find out a little later.
Yes, because while him and the lady are walking after the bus breaks down, he tells her, like, I'm going home to find my father. He's missing. And she's like, what were you reading on the bus? They're just making small talk. And I like what she said, because the book that he was talking about, she's like, wait, an ex-Confederate? And he's like, well, yeah, you know, you can't judge people on this. And she's like, nah, he fought for slavery. You don't get to put an X in front of that.
You can't put an X in front of that.
Yeah.
But going back to the question you asked me, yes, I knew that the people were going to leave him.
Oh, you did?
I knew he wasn't going to be able to get on that. He knew it.
Yeah.
As soon as he saw the man pull up and saw they looked over at him and saw the guy coming from behind, the driver's seat chewing gum, he knew, you know, he automatically turned around and went to the lady and like, let me help you with your bags.
Right.
He knew it was going to be a long walk. And I guarantee you this is how it went. You know what? There's no more room on this one.
Right. And no refunds either.
Maybe there'll be another one to get you soon.
And knowing they would have just had to sit there and wait hours and hours, nothing was ever going to come.
Right.
And then he also says the reason why he joined the military was to get away from his father. So you already know that even though he's coming back because his father's missing, you know that they don't have a good relationship.
Yeah, you know it's rocky.
Right. So we meet Tick's uncle, played by...
Oh, that wasn't no drum rolls. It tried to sound like drum rolls. I tried it. Yeah.
Courtney B. Vance.
Yes, sir.
Wow. Actor extraordinaire. I mean, he's been in so many things, but I think the last thing that we saw him in, or it's probably not the last thing, but we podcasted on The People vs. OJ, and he played Johnny Cochran.
And yeah.
And he did that. He's so good.
He did his damn thing.
And his wife, Angela Bassett, like, they're such good actors and actresses. Have they ever played in anything together? I'm wondering.
I'm not sure. I wish I would have known you was going to ask this. I would have looked it up.
I know. I wish I would have known I was going to ask it too, because I would have looked it up.
I would have definitely looked it up.
Yeah, but just was very happy to see his face here. And, you know, he, one thing I'll notice before Tick comes and joins them and meets up with his family, he does pass some military recruiters. And it's been discussed a lot of times, but just even the last few months, there was a discussion, I think, on Reddit or Twitter, and it was discussing how inequality, or not judging anyone for joining the military, fight for your country, you know, if that's what you choose. But it was showing that a lot of these military recruits don't go to these affluent schools, don't go to an all-white school. They'll come to the black and brown neighborhood schools and come and try to recruit those kids, but they would never go to the white schools. And there was a discussion, I believe, on Twitter or Reddit, and people were like, wait, military comes to your school? And that's when people were like, there's so much inequality in so many different things. And when people try to say, don't bring race into it, we can't help but bring race into it, because it's in everything. Everything. You know, down to recruitment of who comes to your school, which college, not even military, but which colleges are coming to your school trying to recruit you. So I like that it showed that, or at least that's what I got out of it, that a military guy was there trying to recruit, you know, the young men here in this neighborhood.
I used to see it all the time. I've seen it all the time. Military recruits set up in front of the grocery store or set up somewhere trying to recruit people. I mean, it's crazy. And the reason they're going to the black neighborhoods, the brown neighborhoods, is because they feel like they have no other options. Yeah, that's seen as a way out. I mean, me growing up in San Diego, which is a big Navy town, and literally, like, if a girl was dating a Navy guy, it was like, you got yourself a military guy? Like, that was like a good catch. Like, wow, you got someone, because it was thought of like you got someone with a stable job, they got benefits. It was looked at as a positive, you know? Right. And that's how they presented it. And if you didn't know what you want to do, sorry to cut you off, if you didn't know what you want to do after high school, it was always like, well, you know, I can join the military first. Like, that was always just like a second option. It was like, what should I do? Should I go to school or should I go to the military? It was always like that next choice, you know, right there. It was choice 1 or 2. Yeah, I mean, that was our options. Yeah. That was our choice, 1 or 2. Yep. But I forgot what I was going to say. Sorry about that. All right, so we get to meet Letty, which I was very excited to see, and played by Journey Smollett, who we have seen in so many things. But I think one of the things I love her from is The Great Debaters. And then Great movie. And she was also on Friday Night Lights, the TV show. And yes. I really liked her in that. And she was in a Tyler Perry movie that was pretty good also. Oh, yeah. The Tyler Perry that was like a sex ed type of movie. Don't have unprotected sex. Because remember? It was deeper than that, but yeah. That was part of it. Yeah. And then, of course, recently she was just in the new, not the Suicide Squad, but the one, what's the girl from Suicide Squad? The one with the colorful hair? Harley Quinn. It was Birds of Feather. Birds of a Feather, right? Or something like that. Or a feather. Birds of Prey. Birds of Prey. Birds. Yeah, something like that. Whatever. Yeah, it was a pretty good movie. Yeah, I watched it. It was decent. It was decent. Yeah. Okay, I remember what I was going to say. Mm-hmm. About the military. That's how they presented it to you. They presented that you're going to get to see the world. You're going to be able to make changes, mm-hmm. and you're going to be accepted. Because a lot of people that went into the military, especially during war times, they went into it thinking that when they got back home, they would be accepted on a different level, which they weren't. They weren't respected there. And they weren't respected when they got home. Yeah, they weren't respected when they got back home. They went back home to nothing, barely any benefits. A lot of them still strung out. Yep. It's crazy. Yep. PTSD, and then no one there to help them handle that. No benefits, nothing. So it was a very the military has a lot of making up to do, especially when it comes to, well, they have a lot of making up to every citizen, I believe, but especially to young black and brown people, including women now at this point, that have gone there and served their country and come back to crap diddly. All right, so we're pretty much going to go almost every scene, but I will skip scenes here and there. One scene I skipped, I wanted to kind of briefly go over
was with Tick and Uncle George discussing like the letter that he got from his pops and just different cities that maybe his mom is from or his mom's family is from. And one thing that I noticed is that Uncle George didn't really believe that Tick's father wrote this letter.
Yeah, he didn't.
Because he's like, this doesn't sound like your father.
Right.
And Tick was like, man, my father ain't shit anyway. He don't sound like, he never wrote me a letter, but this is his. This is his handwriting. So I feel like it's kind of giving us some insight into what we may see later.
Right. And, you know, Uncle George seemed like he knew more than he was saying.
Yes, because he was saying something about his mom, and he's like, why would my mom tell you that? She hasn't told us anything about her past. And then Uncle George just kind of had that look on his face, like he knows more. I'm like, okay, we're getting somewhere. Like, look at these small signs here and there. All right, so Letty pops up. She sings with her sister on stage, Ruby. And there was a lot of, like, competition amongst siblings, you can tell. Because I could tell Ruby did not want her to come on stage and sing.
What do you mean by competition?
Like sisterly competition. Okay, because when everyone's like, oh my gosh, Letty's here. Ruby's like, oh, my sister's too tired to come up on stage from wherever she just came from. So, and then even later on when they're arguing about not coming to the mother's funeral, you could tell Letty's like, well, obviously she's doing work. She is doing activist work, it sounds like. But she's more of the free spirit. She kind of goes and comes when she pleases, whereas the sister kind of has those roots there. And I felt like the sister was there was some jealousy there. Because she looked at her, even when they were singing, they kind of pushed the microphone back and forth. They were kind of like tugging for it. And I felt like it was a little bit, I mean, even the sister said, she's like, what do you want now? You want money?
Sister rivalry.
Yeah, sister rivalry.
I think it's deeper than that. I think there's some kind of loss of respect that's between them two. And they could play with the mother because sister said, you didn't come to the mother's funeral.
And the brother brings it up too.
Right. So I don't think that, and plus, they must, when they look at her, they must see something else. Mm-hmm. Like I saw somebody write on Twitter that maybe the mother was raped.
Oh, that they have a different father?
Raped by a white guy.
Okay.
And that's why the brother and sister, the older ones, I'm assuming they're older.
Yeah. You
know, they're both brown skin and she's, very light.
Yeah, that's a stretch. Just like, I don't know. I mean, not a stretch, but that's pretty extreme to say raped by a white guy.
It's pretty extreme, but something's there because she didn't go to her mother's funeral. So you could tell that maybe her and her mother didn't get along. Maybe her mother, every time she looked at her, she saw something.
Yeah. It
was something that she didn't like there. So, yeah, maybe it's going too far saying raped, but it's something there that's going on that we don't know about.
Right.
Because by you not going to your mother's funeral and when you sort of ask you about it, you like, well, you know how she was or how we were.
Right.
Her mother had her, and maybe every time her mother looked at her, she saw her father.
Okay.
So she treated her a certain type of way.
And now that you're saying that, there may be some insight into that because a few things that she said with her sister when she asked where her sister living and whatever city she told her neighborhood, she's like, oh, that shithole. She's like, why don't you live over here? And then she's like, well, maybe I can get a job and we can kind of move to a white neighborhood. And I was like, ding, ding, ding. I felt like that's a bigger conversation to be had that I feel still sort of happens. I mean, it does, not sort of. It happens today.
It happens.
Because while watching this show and they're dancing, they're having a good time, it's positive vibes. It's black people just loving each other. I loved that. I loved seeing it. And I said, wow, like, I wonder if we still have neighborhoods like that. But then with Letty coming saying, like, let's move out of this place and let's get to the white neighborhood where everything's nice and shiny. And I feel like that happens a lot where people, when you start making more money and everything like that, people don't stay in their neighborhood and they don't fix up that neighborhood and go, let me buy in this neighborhood and make it better. They do go straight to, quote unquote, a white neighborhood where everything is pretty and shiny.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with the neighborhood they're in. It's pretty and shiny.
Yeah, there was nothing wrong with the neighborhood they're in. But I felt like, and I don't want to judge Letty, but I just felt like maybe she felt she wanted more.
Yeah, she felt that was greener. The grass was greener or just better on the other side.
Right. So we learned that Uncle George, he travels, it sounds like, and he goes and looks for neighborhoods and they put it on the map which was crazy to see that they put it on the map and they show what's safe for black people to drive through. And as they're doing their route, they figure, okay, we got to go through this county, but look what's on there. It looks like it's like KKK, but like in black. So I think that must have meant like Sundown Town, you know? Okay. It was like a KKK, but in a black hoodie or a brown hoodie. So it was showing like, whoa, we got to go through this town, but just know that it's sundown. We can't be there when it's dark or after the sunrise,
after sunfall.
Yes. Thank you for that.
Which that's crazy. It's crazy, and it happened in my lifetime. I remember growing up, and I can't remember which city it was here in Georgia. That's all I heard about. Everybody was saying, "Oh, we can't go there after dark." Like, and somebody said they used to have a sign up, just like the sign they had in the movie, which,
yeah,
don't let the sun beat you out of here or whatever.
Right. Which I'm gonna say, I'm thinking the city is coming, because I remember we've been here for a few years, except for the year in San Diego. I remember about 10 years ago, maybe longer, your mom, I took her to like I think I've talked about this before, but I took her to like a 5K or some type of event my job at the time was having. And once we got there, she's like, wait, Nicole, where? I'm like, oh, this is coming. Like, she freaked out. She was like, what do you have me in this town? I'm like, what? I'm like, I didn't even understand. I was like, what's going on, Miss Gloria? And she's like, do you not know how racist it is here? We can't be here. And I was like, she's tripping. Like, it's my job. And sure enough, when we got there, people were staring at us like they never saw black people. And this was literally like 2009, 2010, somewhere around then. And I just remember like we stayed for like a good 10 to 15 minutes. And I was like, Miss Gloria, I did not know. But I remember she was pissed. She like, do not bring me to this town. She's like, we cannot be here. And then I learned.
That it's a possibility that's one of them. But I think the one I'm thinking of probably started with a M or something.
Macon?
But no.
Okay.
But I don't want to throw any names out there because I don't want to be like you do. I don't want to be wrong.
Yeah, no, but Cumming does have a history of having racist stuff.
Stone Mountain.
Yeah.
Stone Mountain, Georgia has a history.
They just had to close Stone Mountain like a week ago because there was protests like the Confederate, and there was a whole bunch of stuff going on there.
And that's like right around the corner from here.
Mm-hmm. So they end up going on a road. Letty goes with them, excuse me. And she's like, she's going to stop. It sounded like she was going to stop at her brother's house. She was only going to go halfway with them on their road trip. Right?
Right.
That was the plan. And on the way there, they stop at a diner and they're like, it's supposed to be called Lydia's, but it looks like it's changed its name. But it's on our map as a safe zone, even though it's been a while since we've been here.
Yeah.
Tick immediately was like, you know what? We can just leave. We can get out of here. And we can be at Lydia's brother's house in like 2 hours. And Uncle George was like, no, my money's good. I'm staying here. Our money spends the same just like everyone else's.
And it does.
But what did you think? Did you know before Letty came out running saying, we got to get the hell out of here? Did you know it was going to be that?
I did. But, first thing I want to commend Uncle George because what he's doing is very dangerous.
Yeah.
He's the one he's creating a map book. He's going out there driving, taking a risk, letting people know, letting his people know, our people know what's safe zones, where to eat, what's, the best restaurants to go to for us, the routes to take. And like you said, the sundown states or cities or whatever, he's putting everything in the map. And we find out earlier that he got both his knees busted while he was out there.
Right.
So although he took a risk, got his knees busted, probably almost lost his life that day, he's still taking those trips forward his community so his people could be safe.
Yeah. And there's a lot to say about activism and protesting, because a lot of this stuff people at the time looked at as you being, hey, against the law, are you doing this and you're doing that. And now these people are looked at as heroes. The people that sat in diners, and people that boycotted the police or boycotted whatever back in the 60s and before. At the time, they weren't looked at as heroes. Rosa Parks wasn't looked at as a hero, And
MLK wasn't looked at as a hero.
It wasn't looked at as a hero. So at the time, so it's really, you got to be very careful, because even now with the protests and everything going on now, and people try to tell you how to do your activism and how to tell you how to fight for your rights and your equality and try to paint you in a negative light, I guarantee 20 years from now, that same conversation won't be saying, that same conversation that they're having today about these people protesting and people actually saying we need equality and we need to stop police injustice. How they're portrayed today by certain people, they won't be portrayed like that in 20 years. And
I believe you're right, but what's sad about it is we still would be having this conversation.
It's very sad that we're still having these conversations because there's some people that are blind that are going to be watching this show and they're like, damn, shit, it used to be bad for black people back then. No, that's how you guys are looking at it. This thing is almost correlating to what it is like today. It may not be the exact same thing. It may not be a colored can't, colored's this or white's this, but it's so, there's so much comparison and so much parallels to what it was then to what it is now.
It is. And there's still neighborhoods that we can't live in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we can live there, but they don't want us there.
And would you want to send your kids there where they're going to be bullied and this?
Right.
And that goes back to where desegregation happened. Those kids for the first time, our parents were the first ones going to a desegregated school. How hard it must have been for them to be the first black people at a school.
Right. My stepfather, he was a part of that. He was one of the first black people in his school.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he was spit on going past, and they had to have a police out there. People threw stuff at him, called him nigger, all type of stuff. I mean, it was bad.
Yeah.
And this was in Detroit. But I'm sorry, I got all off subject. But the restaurant scene, I knew it was going to happen. I knew if it wasn't Lydia's anymore and how those people looked at him, that something crazy was going to happen.
Yeah. I couldn't have predicted that, but I thought they were just not going to serve them or something. But when they get chased out and there's people already coming to the town, I mean, if they hadn't left right then and there, they would be dead right now. They would have been dead. And the people chase them out of town, shooting at them. And I love that Tick start shooting back. I said, go on. He's from the military. He knows how to fight for his rights. He didn't come back for this bullshit. And I appreciate that he was shooting back.
Yeah.
So they make it to Letty's brother's house, Martin, I believe his name was, and he's giving them the insight into the sheriff and saying how the sheriff is super scary and that there's been some stories of people missing either from wolves or wild animals, and also some of them from the sheriff. Nobody knows, but you just got to be very careful in the next part of their journey that they were going to. And it did seem like Letty was going to stay there. But at the time, you start hearing her and her brother start arguing about money. And,
yes, her arguing about the mother, missing the funeral.
Right.
And everything. And this is where I got the part of, for some reason, she doesn't fit in with her family.
Yeah.
And it seems like her brother and sister are mad about her missing the mother. But it seems like her and her mother, like I said, didn't have the best relationship.
Right.
And no one wants to be there, be around getting criticized or whatever. And then no one wants to be a big fish in a small town.
Yeah. And nothing's wrong with her wanting more. Like, she's been all over. Even when Tick was like, where you been? She's like, I've been here, I've been there. She's been everywhere. And it sounded like she was doing some activism because at one point when her and her brother were yelling, she says, I used some of that money to bail people out of jail. I was trying to do good work.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes back to what you were saying. If she is half white, maybe she feels even a stronger obligation because she sees what her brothers and sisters have gone through. Maybe they've even gone through worse than she has.
Right. And she see what she's had to go through.
Right.
Like there's a lot of places that she can probably blend in, but there's no place that she could pass.
Yeah. Well, while they're inside fighting, Tick's talking to his unc and saying that, the last fight he had with his dad was about him joining the military, how a reporter came and asked him why he joined, and it was all this drama. And Uncle George kind of does what I feel like people back in the day did do, and that is kind of make excuses for the trauma and the abuse that they put on their children. Because he was like, well, your dad, he never asked about you, but he would sit at my house and wait until I talked about you. And it was like, that's not love. But he had his weird way.
You can't really explain what love is.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, I'd be like, man, forget that. He didn't ask about me, but he waited. Yeah, you don't know his father and what he's been through. It's probably not normal in the life that he lived for him to have those emotions and feelings. Like, yeah, he has them, but it's not normal for them to express
them. Yeah, which is what he says. He says he didn't know how to express his feelings. He was younger and smaller. And Tick said, well, I was younger and smaller. Who was there to protect me?
Yes, and by them saying younger and smaller, you could tell that they were abused by their father.
Mm-hmm. So it was a cycle, but I think it's safe to say if Tick does have children, I would say it's safe that he's probably going to be the one to break that cycle.
Yeah, I think it's broken.
Yeah.
I think it's broken because he sees the wrong his father did. He escaped it. He didn't sit around and sit in it and become a part of it. Let it become a part of him where he could, put deflect that same pain or reflect that same pain on someone else.
Right. And then also how the father sort of ignores what's going on with Letty and her brother, because it started sounding like it was getting violent. She's like, wait, let go of me, you're hurting me. Yeah. And when Tick was going to interrupt, he said, no, it's family business. And that was kind of their motto, mind your business and don't say anything, even if you see some wrong shit going on. So after they leave, Letty does decide to leave with them, and they're lost. And right before the police come and pull them over, Tick is talking to Letty. He was like, oh, what's in there? And they heard a noise or something. And he said, it's probably a shoguth or whatever. I don't know how to pronounce it. And she's like, what's that? He's like, a monster with a bunch of eyes. And we'll get to when we get to the monster. The monster had but I didn't recognize the first time we watched. But the monster did have a whole bunch of eyes on it.
Right. And he was just being funny.
Yes.
It came from a book that he read.
But
a Lovecraft book.
Yes. So are the stories that he's reading supposed to be now like real life, coming like his stories are real? Or is he bringing his fantasy to real life?
Oh, wow. That's a good question.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, me personally, I'm thinking that when they say they're going to Lovecraft Country, Lovecraft wrote these books, I'm thinking they were real. He wrote the books based on real situations that he's seen. Mm-hmm. But no one else outside his area seen that stuff.
Right.
So is the books that Lovecraft wrote, were those like just real? Is that stuff that he experienced growing up? So he knew that there was the monsters with 3 eyes and all this other crap that he's seeing?
Yeah.
I mean, there's people that, claim they seen a UFO.
Yeah. And I believe him. I used to
actually believe him too.
We used to swear up and down Fire in the Sky was real. You remember that movie?
Yes.
And then I think I heard years later what might not be real. I'm like, what? I knew all my life that was real, but I still do believe. But the police officer is an asshole. He calls Tick, a little smart nigga. He makes him like please, because he says, hey, it's Sundown Town. That's in 7 minutes. Y'all ain't gonna be able to make it. And there was a whole bunch of drama, and finally this was an intense scene, them escaping this asshole of an officer, only to, as soon as they pass the tracks to the other side of town, there's other police waiting for them. So it's clear that sheriff called the police from the other town.
Yeah, called ahead.
Yeah.
And made sure. And their excuse was, hey, someone's breaking in houses, stealing stuff. But it's crazy everything they had to go through on this trip.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just the police officers. It was how everyone looked at them. Even when they were at a restaurant, minding their own business, you hear a guy making monkey noises.
Yep.
And getting in their face. And these are kids that if you were there with them alone, they wouldn't say anything.
Yep.
They're quiet. But, a guy trying to impress his friends, and that happened. And, I don't know if you know or not, that happened to me.
Really?
Right. Yeah. Last year.
Jeez.
Last year that happened to me. I was at the gas station fixing my tire.
I think you did tell me about this.
I was bent down, and all of a sudden I heard, some monkey noises come from behind me, like, ooh, 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 and kids laughing. So I turned around and saw a car full of white boys.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, you know what, Gary, just turn around and just, finish fixing the tire. Do what you do. And they kept doing it. So as soon as I saw their car move, because they were stopped at a light, as soon as I saw the car move, I jumped in my car. Because I said, you know what, I'm going to see if they still have that same energy when I get to them.
Right.
So, after trying to catch up with them for like half a mile, I said, you know what, I look stupid. I let these guys take me out my character, have me going out of my way. I was probably like 2 minutes away from my mother's house, but I let them take me like 10 minutes, 15 minutes back the other way just to try to catch up with him at a light. I mean, what I was going to do when I was, and that's what I thought to myself, Gary, when you catch them, the only thing that's going to happen is now they're going to claim that you're an aggressor when you're on their ass.
Yep.
You're going to be the aggressor.
You don't know why he was following this officer.
Right. They're going to play the victim when I get up to him. So I just, snapped back to my senses and just turned around. But it's crazy that they had to endure that, and people are still doing that to this day. And the white kids that was doing it, I mean, they could have been trying to, soft fronting friends, having fun. Not, I'm not going to say that they're racist, but I'm not going to say they're not. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to say that that's not what they were taught in their household.
Oh, I'm going to say they are.
But that's what they had to endure on the trip, but even before they got to the police officer.
Yeah.
Everyone looking at them. So they went in a restaurant. The guy at the bar turning in and looking at them. The guy who's supposed to be serving them walk off. So, yeah, it's just crazy how, the events took place.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it was scary. When they got to the other officers, that was, just terrifying.
Yeah. They were about to get killed, and their family wouldn't have known what happened to them.
Yeah, because at this point right here, you're walking them into the woods at night.
To kill him.
You evil motherfucker, you.
Right.
You walk them in there just because they're driving through a city after dark and because they're colored, the color of their skin.
Right.
Not because they've done anything. Not because they're bad people. You don't know anything about these people. You didn't walk them in the woods to question them.
Mm-hmm. And it reminds me of when we take road trips now, like for the most part, the most we usually have to worry about is like making sure all the other drivers on the road are safe. It's never anything like this. Although I would say there are still we live in the South, so there are still some little cities where it's like, we don't want to run out of gas over here, But that's sad because that's something that I'm going to say for the most part, white people do not have to think about. They don't have to think about like, I wonder if it's racist in this city. No, they don't even think about it. They just assume they belong wherever they go.
Because we've been in plenty of cities where we're taking trips. And, I may have mentioned, I turned and looked around and said, Nicole, I haven't seen not one black person in the city since we've been in here. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying that just because the town's racist, because we got out the car, people was, and just because they speak to you and they're nice, don't mean shit.
Right.
I mean, they can still be racist.
Yep.
But white people don't have to go through this. They don't have to go through a town and say, oh, man, I wonder what's going to happen to me over here. Or I wonder if there's any more white people over here.
Right. So let's talk about when they get to they're led into the woods. It looks like all hell is, all hell is loose. And they're on the ground. And they're making little jokes. Oh, I bet you never even heard about bet you don't even know about the robbery and blah, blah, blah. And the next thing you know, you start hearing some animal noises. And we slowly see the police get picked off one by one. I loved it. It looked like Uncle George almost didn't make it, but he made it. And what did you think about this whole in the woods scene? And I mean, we kind of talked about a little bit on the podcast, but about the police officer not willing, even though he sees the sheriff slowly turning into an animal, and he's still pointing his gun at the unarmed black man.
Yeah, it's like you rather get killed by this animal than to take your gun off. I mean, you're stupid. At this point, you're just being stupid.
Yep.
At this point, I mean, your true colors have been shown, but, now it's just over the top.
And then not only that, they made Uncle George give his flashlight because Uncle George is like, wait, they're scared of the light. That's why we didn't see them during the daytime. And that's how I was able to make it through to the house because they're scared of the light. And he's like, give me that light just in case your theory's right. And that was like the one arm. That was the police officer who literally only at this point had one arm.
Yeah, it's one arm talking shit. And did you see the part where he cocked his gun?
Yeah.
I said, how the hell he cocked his gun with one arm?
And I know this is gonna sound evil, but they got everything they deserve. They were racist until the very last breath. Last breath.
They were. That's crazy.
Which makes me think, I always say if aliens come, racism will end because we're gonna all band together. Nope, some people will still be racist, even if there's aliens and monsters. But
because remember, I told you that people have to have somebody to hate. They have to. I mean, we watch shows. What was that show about a killer, making of a murderer?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this was a town full of white people. And guess what? They found the white people with the least amount of money or whatever, the ones that had a junkyard, and that's who they hated.
Yep.
So, people gonna always find somebody. If it's not black people around, not Hispanic people around, if nobody else, Muslims, Indian, Arab, if they're not around, they will still find somebody to hate.
Yeah. And that's why I'm always weary when I hear people be racist against another race or ethnicity. I'm like, oh, if they racist against them, they racist against me. They just racist against them at this moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Usually not just racist against one type of person or whatever. You racist. So, yeah.
If you have a hate in your heart, it's just there.
Yeah.
It's just instilled in you that for some reason you think you're better than this person. So instead of just feeling that way and minding your own fucking business, you act on it.
Mm-hmm.
You let it be known.
Well, I believe that is all we got for this week. We'll be back immediately after with episode 2 for recap. And if you guys want to be part of the podcast, hit us up. host@theverdictsin.com. That's HOST @theverdictsin.com. Or on Twitter @theverdictsin or facebook.com/verdictsin. And we will discuss your feedback on the podcast. Until then, I'm Nicole.
I'm Gary.
Bye.
Bye.